Phillip Swan, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you on. Phillip, you are the Chief Product and Go-to-Market Officer of the AI Solution Group. You are really known for blending customer-centric go-to-market strategies with cutting-edge product development, leadership, and partnerships. In fact, your experience, or expertise, I should say, lies in seamlessly integrating sales, marketing, product, and operation to drive business growth and create customer experiences that progress people from initial awareness to long-term advocacy. More recently, of course, have been a lot more vocal, actually a vocal advocate for responsible AI, and also talking about and addressing the risks associated with shadow AI. Now, for those who may not be familiar with those terms, we will address that in a bit. But I'm curious, Phillip, you co-founded Pipe Partners and a GTM, or go-to-market advisory firm that has now merged with the AI Solution Group. I'm curious, given all the conversations around AI and certainly go-to-market, did you see perhaps an area that was being ignored or a bit of a disconnect in the market that triggered this whole journey into merging with the AI Solution Group to what it is today?
The short answer is yes, but let's go into some detail here. First of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's an interesting role because that I play, being the chief product and go-to-market officer. And you think in a startup, chief this, we're all working, right? So every single one of us, CEO, every single one of us is producing work. And so we're really keeping the company small. We founded the company together with a very aggressive goal to be $1 billion in revenue company with under 100 people. Now that means that we have to ourselves rely very heavily on AI to make ourselves optimized, productive, and driving, most importantly, customer outcomes. You talked about customer centricity. We call it customer obsession. So we are customer obsessed in the company, absolutely customer obsessed. We have spent this time in the last several months as we formed the company together it was like instant. It's almost like we walked into a room, we'd known each other for 20 years. It was that comfortable. It was that comfortable of a feeling. And working with people who are diverse, but like-minded in so many ways so that we can have compatibility of thought. So we're just focusing in on what precisely is the customer pain point we're looking to solve, which will maybe address what we saw, what initially started the company. Like any good startup, we've pivoted, but we've never pivoted away from one thing, which is safe and responsible AI. And what is it we're going to do there? And what does that mean? So for us, it was a philosophical discussion. What does good mean? What does safe mean? What does ethical mean? And really coming to terms beyond what the EU AI Act or any other compliance or regulatory factor that comes into play in the operation of the company. What is it that will make AI safe? What will it make it good for people, good for the planet? And really driving into solving custom time to value for customer problems. And that's why we named ourselves the AI Solution Group, because we provide a solution of a use case that's driven off at its core, built on a system that is built to be safe and responsible, which means that really focusing in on not only compliance and regulatory, but really helping our partners and our clients drive out AI governance beyond just data governance and bringing a maturity level, because AI by itself, if it goes unchecked, would be dangerous to humanity. And that is not a place anybody wants to go. And people's images of Skynet and Arnold Schwarzenegger materializing in this big flash of lightning is really, what is stuck in people's minds. But before any of that, whatever predictive future we cannot predict can be, we have to solve for tomorrow, today. And that's the focus we have. So it means about that value. What is there a real use case for AI that can actually cause you to succeed, which gets you into eliminating hallucination, ensuring that your data is private and secure and you're not training some other third-party model so that your intellectual property isn't leaking out. That's the shadow AI part, by the way, which is where companies, valuable company data is leaked outside. You just really can't afford these. And then the other thing that people are really thinking about is brand reputation. And I'm not talking about brand reputation of companies like the AI Solution Group or Microsoft. I'm talking about the General Motors of the world, the Fords of the world. Think of any global manufacturer, or who's Boeing as another great example, who cannot afford a reputational hit due to somebody doing something silly with AI within the company. So there has to be that governance, which goes beyond regulation. And then figuring out what is the pain point that is causing us the biggest problems today that we have not been able to solve with human expertise. And so we have to think as a company to be really human first, augmented with AI. So all the solutions we are building is about augmenting the human, whether it's an operator of a piece of machinery or whether it's some analyst somewhere in the bowels of some company trying to work some compliance job, is really focusing in on ensuring that they get to do more of what they're highly competent at doing, what their own superpowers are. Everybody has a superpower. I don't care who you are. You just got to find it. And when you find your superpower, jobs start ceasing to become jobs and starting to become enjoyable. And I've never thought for one day at the AI Solution Group that I had a job. It's never felt that way. And so we've identified several migraine level pain points and that we're actively solving for clients right now. And based on the harvesting the patterns that we're learning through this is enabling our future product roadmap and where we're heading as a company. And it'll be no surprise to anybody, and I don't think I'll be breaking any NDAs if I said anything like this, but we are focused on being one of the first agentic systems out there. And I'm talking about true AI agents. I'm not talking about what people are calling agents today. And there's very few people thinking today in terms of the safety and the responsibility of AI agents, which could easily run amok.
There's a lot to unpack there. So let's maybe start with some of the definitions. Responsible AI, to put this simply, would I be right in saying it's a set of principles and values that guide the development of AI usage within the company?
That is correct. So there's two components. There's two components of it. And so it turns into safe, ethical, and good. On the ethical part, it's got to be fair. You've got to have transparency. There cannot be any bias in there, because imagine now you're a lending firm and your algorithm is shooting out all kinds of bias information. That's not good, right? But for anybody's standards. And I'm being deliberately low in what I think of systems that would do like that. So you've got to put what are called guardrails up. And that's what we're building. We're building these guardrails. So we're starting to publish white papers and really forward thinking about how do you actually, and what is an AI agent, right? And somebody could just say, isn't it just software? No, it's actually something that is more important and is more fundamental. We're not a software as a service company. We are an independent software company. We're an ISV, right? But we are service as software. And you flip that in your head about agents, right? Agents are no longer task-oriented. They are goal, whereas your typical SaaS model tools are task-oriented, right? You have to have a human enter some input of some form or another to start the tool from running, whatever it's going to be doing. That's no longer the case here. Yes, you're going to have humans talking to agents, no question. The majority of the work is going to be done in agent-to-agent communication. And if that agent-to-agent communication doesn't live to a set of ethics, doesn't live to a set of entitlement, and this is a key word, entitlement, and also its ability to have authorization, right? What am I authorized to do? I can't suddenly go into Vinay's bank account and take out $50 and put it into Philip's bank account. No, that clearly is not a good agent behavior, right? So you've got to put these bounds in there. And if you're not careful, and if you do not program this from the ground up correctly, mayhem will reign. And I'm not saying that as a doom factor. It's just a reality. You've seen so many bad experiments that companies have thought they were doing good that went bad, right? So there are any number of them, not including the famous one where somebody put two agents up and work running independently with no orchestration, and they started talking in their own language.
Yeah, right? I agree with that one. You've touched upon shadow AI as well. But with all that you're saying, would I be right in saying this, that the real thrust of using AI is really to build total organizational revenue momentum?
Yes, so you're absolutely correct. So there are obviously operational efficiencies that you can gain, right? Those are absolutely key. But if you can improve customer sentiment, your company's customer sentiment by using AI, you should go for it. And great examples of that will be in customer service. What is the biggest great friend there is being on hold for 15 minutes to talk to a human. When I don't really want to talk to a human, all I want to have happen is I broke my lawnmower and how do I fix it? That's all I want to know. And so I don't need to be held on that. Same thing for banks, right? So until you need, at some point you will need a human on the phone with a bank, but there's so much that can be done to improve customer sentiment and value that all of a sudden the bank is now a friend to the client, the customer, in terms of a customer experience, while still conforming to compliance and regulatory needs that they have to do in terms of how they service those customers. It's going to be one of these seesaw events, Vinay, where it's like you're going to see some overcorrections on some side, some overcorrections the other side, and things will start to balance out. But the pace that things will start to balance out is going to be a while, because we got so many innovations going on within the fundamental companies, like the foundational companies like OpenAI and Microsoft and Anthropic and Mistral, and all of these companies are doing some phenomenal work. That's not going to stop anytime soon. And so we're going to see constant change, constant innovation at a pace that we have not seen before. And that's, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's really where we're.
I certainly understand where you're coming from an AI perspective. However, a few points came to mind that are not AI related, and I'd be curious to unpack how these would probably come into the picture as well, at least from an AI perspective. And that's the fact that a lot of organizations fail to recognize that departments like finance and legal create significant friction in the buyer journey. Another being that companies overlook the critical stage before traditional awareness, which is limiting their ability to create subconscious preference. And I know you're quite passionate about that. There's also a disconnect between product development, customer success, revenue teams, which prevents guaranteed outcome delivery. And last one that came to mind, of course, is the ability of organizations to systemize trust building across all touch points. So I'd be curious to dive into some of those. And
oh my gosh, that's because you're talking my favorite topics now outside of AI, right? Because companies claim to be customer centric, right? And what they mean by that typically is that sales and marketing have some shared KPIs, right? Some are better, some are worse, right? I'll just leave it at that. True customer centricity is where the board, the C-suite, the entire C-suite, and their organizations have shared KPIs that are customer centric. And Now, I'll give you an example of 2 KPIs for your audience to work with. One is NRR, net revenue retention, and the second is gross revenue retention. And they are subtly different. One is an index, one is a percentage. The reason you want to use 2 is if you just go with net revenue retention, you may have long-term agreements, multi-year agreements within your system, your corporate system, that will obfuscate customer distrust, customer unhappiness, customer dissatisfaction, customer negative, everything across the board. And it gets hidden because they haven't churned yet because they've got another 2 years to run on their product. But if you listen to the numbers, you might have caught something sooner and been able to rectify it, because the thing about problems is everybody knows they only get bigger. So the earlier you deal with it and the earlier you nip it in the bud, the smaller the problem is and the happier everybody is. And the thing with gross revenue retention now, which is, so NRR is an index, gross revenue retention is a percentage. You now can start to see, hold on a second, we should be north of 83%. You would know this, but we're sitting at 78.4. What the hell is going on here? Now you start the digging exercise. Where is the problem in the organization? So it shines a spotlight for the entire team to start collaborating together, not to point fingers, but to solve a customer problem. That's where customer centricity comes in, because now if the CFO, the CIO, the chief customer officer, the chief marketing officer, everybody, the COO, the CEO share those common objectives, all of a sudden you're sitting in a meeting trying to solve each other's problems, because we're not getting paid unless we solve this problem.
I love the fact that you're talking about the leading indicator and using that to proactively solve issues. I'd love to dive into a bit more, but I'd also like your perspective, at least on your journey to date, of what you would consider to be your personal area of strength.
Oh boy. My personal area of strength is like, I can dream product like you can't believe. I can join dots like you cannot believe. It's just, I'm not going to disclose what we're building here, because it is true. We've got a true build with strategy, but we have a product vision that is incredible. It's my best work yet. And I've been able to think of it because I now have this global responsibility for both product and revenue, right? Go to market, right? So there's only one thing I care about, and that's revenue, right? So how do I drive revenue? It's customer satisfaction. How do I drive customer satisfaction? Is I build them what they want. And that's why we have this build with strategy with our clients, right? So we're letting the customers dictate and mature with us, and they're seeing the value in that. They're seeing, because what they're getting with us are the people in our company. It's really not bragging. It's the best team I've ever worked with in my entire career. And I've had a lot of years. There's a lot of scars on this back. And this is the best team ever. I am genuinely proud and humbled to be part of this team, because it's incredible. And we think so well together. We have diversity of thought. We have diversity of education. We have diversity of backgrounds, right? And cultures, right? And that's where this is what diversity brings, when excellent people together that just want to work together, right? And so in my journey to be here, in it's like, I can think to the future state, right? What do people want? And work backwards and get them to a point and on a journey to get to that future state. That is what I love doing.
And in that area of strength, what would you say is something that businesses don't know but should?
Oh, biggest thing, they know it, but they're not doing anything about it. You've got to get your business connected to your CIO or CTO's office, because we see it from Fortune 5 companies all the way down the line. CTOs, CIOs are disconnected from the business, and it is a shame. And it's costing companies trillions in total in lost value. That one disconnection. And I encourage anybody to get the business and the CIOs and CTOs to be best friends. Because when that happens, magic will happen for your business.
You raise an interesting point there. I've talked to various folk from a variety of different spaces in the B2B tech space, and they would argue that perhaps a department that they run or head up, or other departments as well, are disconnected from the executive decision-making space and perhaps the table as well, and that with a better connection, a lot more could be achieved. Would I be right in saying that perhaps more fundamentally the issue lies in improper expectations being set and communication?
Oh, yeah. So you're now getting into change management territory. It's something we work. One of my business partners is a change management guru, and you're absolutely spot on. It starts with the board and it starts with the CEO, and making sure that everybody is connected to and communicates that the CEO owns the culture of the company, right? And should be driving that culture, not anybody else. And that person also needs to ensure that their lieutenants, which is their C-suite, right, and other general managers, align to their vision and believe in their vision and her or his vision, right? I'm thinking specifically Mary Barrack, GM. She has turned that company, and it's pretty amazing what she has done with the company. Now, it's not without its faults, but everybody else follows her mission, which was effectively zero accidents, best cars and zero accidents and no failures, right? And it's all about quality and resilience. And that's a strong message, right? And when people believe in that message and then and how they're getting gold and paid are matching that message and matching that culture, you start getting into organizational change. And here's the big number. Only 7% of your organization needs to believe before you reach critical mass.
That's an interesting number.
It's not that big of a number. It's not that big. You find your 7%, and the rest of your organization will come along with them, because that 7% will drive mass adoption and change.
Thank you for that statistic. It brings things into perspective. On a different tack, we've touched upon this idea of pre-awareness and how it fundamentally can change the traditional B2B buy journey. Could you elaborate on this idea of pre-awareness and what steps we can take?
Sure. I'm happy to, because here's the thing. Most people I'm not casting aspersions, but people in general get lazy when they think about customer journey. Many do not. I'm not casting this as a big thing, but I see it time and time again, especially when I had my old consulting business. They think of the customer journey in 3 or 4 steps, and it's anything but 3 or 4 steps. And then what is 90% of companies start at awareness, which is somebody has a problem and they're aware they have a problem, and they're out searching for companies that are that scratch that itch, right? That whatever it is, whether it's a CRM, whether it's an accounting software, or whatever it is, right? Move that back a bit. Imagine how much you would gain trust, and you would gain knowledge that all of a sudden you are being made aware that there's this company out there. You don't know what they do, but they're publishing content, they're taking this thought leadership, they're doing community work, and you like what you hear. And that's all. It's a resource for you as you're learning, right? All of a sudden, you've suddenly got a niche. You've got a $1 billion problem on your hands, or a $300 million problem on your hands. These are migraine level problems. I want to use AI to solve it, or I want to use something to solve it. So you were searching for it, right? What you normally do, you talk to people. If you talk to ABC company, if you talk to Y company, if you talk to the AI solution group. Oh, hold on a second. Those guys at the AI solution group, they've been doing a bunch of white papers, which we are. So I'm not disclosing anything we're not. I like what they're saying. I trust those guys. They seem to know what they're talking about, right? Pre-awareness is, I'm aware of the work that they do, but I didn't see how it's relevant to me. And all of a sudden now I need something that these guys might be able to help, and gals, we're men and women, the folks over at the AI Solution Group can help with. That's the whole thing. So it's all of a sudden there's some inherent trust in there. And if it's still confusing to people, think about in the neighborhood that you live in, anywhere in the world, and you're driving down the street, you go to XYZ store for your newspapers, you'll go to whatever supermarket for your groceries and all things based on your knowing. But when you drive past somewhere, you're aware of it, you know what they do, you just until you need, whether it's the shoe repair or you're going to see a cobbler or going to see a physical therapist or whatever it is you need and you've been driving past, that's that pre-awareness. You know that there, and the chances are you're going to go in and talk to them.
Yeah. Let me see if I can put this a little bit differently, and please correct me if I'm wrong here. Would I be right in saying that it's almost a company that's raised Series B funding and will potentially go to Series C, where you offer a particular set of solutions given the next stage of growth? You're suggesting that we look at the thought processes and issues that Series B companies face and start addressing those as they slowly prepare to get to Series C.
Start addressing outcomes, right? That's the key. Addressing outcomes. And that's the future that I was trying to infer to together, because that future is the outcome, right? And all it is, once you've got that, however crazy you think it is, it's not crazy because it's your idea. It should never be crazy, right? There's no such thing. You just work back. And then for each problem that you see, you tackle the hardest problem first. You don't, and that's the other thing, do not kick the can down the road. Kicking the can down the road only makes that level of a problem become, a multi-dimensional problem, right? That is now, you can't contain it. It's gone, right? Now you're just managing risk at this point, and it's where it could have been avoided if you had addressed it earlier, completely avoided it if you addressed it earlier. And that's what we're focused in on. Being one of my partners at the company, his name is Alistair Lowe-Norris. He is by far one of the top 2 or 3 people in the world on responsible AI. And it's amazing to be in his orbit. I learn something with every conversation. It's insane what he knows. And that's how we're bringing credibility to safe and responsible AI. It's like, you've got the people who know this. Cool. It's their world. It's all about people.
Yeah.
It's all about people. Yeah. So back to your Series B question, right? And what I'm not a believer in raising capital for the need of making capital, right? So it's a lot of these companies got to that stage because their VCs pushed them grow at all costs. And that's the wrong thing. Everything's going to be on the shaky foundations when you do that. I'm a big believer in having a solid concrete foundation that I can build any structure on top of. And even when the Category 5 hurricane comes blowing across, the structure still stands, right? It's that level of resilience in an organization that I love building. And you should not have to raise that level of capital. Now, there's times where you want to bring on other kinds of capital versus venture debts, and that's a whole different use of capital raise. I'm talking about venture capital. You shouldn't have to raise that much.
And I'm sure there's a whole conversation around that we could go into, but for now, this idea of being customer centric certainly is something that a lot of people have heard. And I completely get your point about understanding customers and the whole pre-awareness side of things as well. I'm curious, as more people do more in this broad space of being customer centric and addressing customer needs, would you say that to create sticky impressions in people's minds, you've got to do a little bit extra? You've got to be perhaps a little bit unreasonable.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. It's all about memories. It's emotional. Like, people still buy from people they like. It's that simple. That human nature. People who think anything different don't understand human nature, right? And if you don't like the person, you're not going to buy from them, whether they've got the best software in the world or the best solution in the world. You're just not going to buy from them. You'll go to the competitor, right? So you always have to give your customer something. Always. Back in my day, when I started a bag, after I was an engineer and I went to start being a salesperson, before I went to sales management, was consultative selling. I listened to what my customers needed, not wanted, needed, and I got it for them. And I'll give you a great example of this. I just gotten married, and my wife pushed me into leaving my job of 15 years into going into sales. She convinced me to go and do that. And my territory suddenly died from being 100% military aerospace in 1992 to being dead, right? Because all of the programs had been cut by when President Clinton came in. So I still had mouths to feed at home. And so I literally picked up a Yellow Pages. Who could look? I hit upon a company. Oh, I didn't realize Xerox was in El Segundo, which was up there. I'll go and drive up there and see if I can tell you. I found a product manager who was willing to talk to me, listening to his problem. He told me, oh, I can't ever debug my printers because all my printers and copiers, because when I do that, everything stops and all the servos burn out. And so I've got a debugger for that. And I sold him a $10 million deal for a debugger. That's in the sense what it was. We provided a lot more to it, but the pain point is migraine hand. He needed a debugger, and that's what I had. And I repackaged it and got it into a deal that turned it into a $10 million deal for it. And I was number one salesperson that year.
Terrific. So with this idea of being unreasonable, is there a framework that you use for measuring and optimizing at each organizational touch point?
Oh, yes. So the thing that I do is one of my powers is I'm able to understand and business process when people speak it to me, and I'm able to turn that into, okay, and then I'm able to take that diagram and make efficiencies out of that diagram, and then click until we do it, and we keep testing, and people are along for the entire journey because they can see it, they're influencing it, right? So it's not me doing it, I'm just effectively the scribe, right? So I'm listening, I'm coaching, it's their process, and they're suddenly realize, oh, that's broken. Oh, we did, and all of a sudden it gets everything remarkably. You hit 80% efficiency within a couple of days, quite honestly, of work. It's really incredible when you do this. Now, obviously, you can't do this with a really large enterprise. That's by department and stuff like that, but it should not take you long to actually get things done. Obviously, the implementation and adoption of these new processes, but you've got to draw it out. You've got to speak it. So back to change management, the lowest common denominator is a conversation. You've got to talk to people. You've got to talk to your customers. You've got to talk to your coworkers. You've got to talk to your managers. You've got to talk to your executives. You've got to talk to everybody. And it's not brown nosing. This is how change happens. If you want to be a change agent, don't wait for change to happen to you. Be part of it. Own it.
Just going back to the question of the framework, you're gaining input from perhaps
all the business
stakeholders, including customers as well.
All the stakeholders, business owners, and then you have all your decision rights, right? Who has decision authority, who does not, right? Who has informed status, right? So you've really got to map this out, who the stakeholders are. So you can't just jump into it. You've got to start with the most senior level executive, right? And start mapping all of this stuff out. And then listening to those conversations and being a mediator in many cases, right? And in many cases, a good change management expert is a great mediator, right? Because they're sitting between the CEO's message, the CEO's changes, and the rest of the team who are struggling to come along with the story, right? And it's back to that 7%. You've got to get out of that team 2 or 3 really bought in early and bring everybody else along with it, right? And that's how it happens. And then the same thing for their organizations. So it's an iterative process and continual reinforcement as well, right? And how you change things. So is there a framework? The framework is a conversation, is what I'm trying to say. The framework are rites and rituals, right? Or cues and rituals, right? When somebody's talking, what you're doing, and being consistent. Consistency will pay off more than anything, right? So be consistent. And now if that's consistently, that there's a move for velocity, right? So you hire people who are marathon runners, right? And I use the proverbial term marathon, but if you've got the stamina to keep up that level of pace. And it's not for every, that's why so many organizational cultures exist, because so many people can do it. And back to my favorite thing, when you talk about framework and culture, the first four letters of culture are what? C-U-L-T. It's not a bad thing. You are forming a cult around the CEO. There's no question about it. If you don't have a cult around your CEO, you don't have it.
Interesting thought. Listening to what you're saying, would I be wrong in saying that, yes, being a mediator is key? Is there also significance to be given to perhaps a skill set of being a peacemaker or a facilitator of reconciliation?
That's what I mean by it. That's precisely what I mean when I say mediator. That's exactly what I mean. You are the peacemaker, right? It's, if you've got siblings, right? There's three siblings. There's usually a peacemaker in one of those three. And at least there was in my household, and it wasn't me. But yes, it's definitely, all of what you just said, Vinay, is absolutely.
Irreversible momentum. It's something you brought up when we were talking last.
Yes.
Could you define it, and how is it different from traditional growth metrics?
So this stems from so I spent the early part of my career working with the UK government and then the US government. And so it was one thing that I really realized, especially as I was working with some insanely talented individuals and teams, incredible, absolutely incredible, was that tides would turn. And when tides turned, there's no going back, right? Sometimes tides turn for the better, sometimes they don't. And so that's where the term irreversible momentum really was driven home to me. Was working closely with service individuals and other members of different communities. Is just the resilience, the ability to think really quickly is just absolutely critical in all of this. But I don't know. I just honestly feel that people have lost the ability to communicate, right? And part of this is because people are hidden in their mobile devices, their tablets, and everything else. People are hidden into games now, and their social lives are always gaming. I'm not saying that to be critical. I have a son at home that is precisely this way, and it's their community, right? It's their world, and but it worked. We've got to communicate. We've got to talk, and it's not your way or it's the highway, right? Because corporations, businesses themselves are cold, right? They're not human. Humanity brings them alive. But businesses exist to make a profit. For-profit businesses exist to make a profit. Nothing should stand in the way of that other than ethics and compliance. It's just like, you got to do it. So be really clear on that. But there are many people in organizations that think that, oh, if you don't believe in what I believe, you're the enemy. We're either in this together or we're not, right? And I'm not here. I'd rather be a friend with somebody at work than be somebody that's gone, I've got to be careful. So that's where culture comes in, like minds comes in. So when you look at the people we are bringing on with this next tier that we're bringing on, these are all people we know, right? I don't think there's one that none of us have worked with directly that we've been bringing on. And that's what makes this work. And the next level will be the same thing. You may think this is about exceptionalism, right? Diversity drives that exceptionalism. But you've got to think alike. And this goes back to the culture, right? It goes back to the CEO who's the figurehead, right? It's their culture. Whether you're Mary Barra, whether you're Satya Nadella, whether you're whomever, right? Elon Musk, whomever. It's a culture. And everybody, successful brands like Tesla, SpaceX, their teams just live and breathe that culture, right? And everybody senses it. Customers sense that. People hear it, they feel it, they touch it, they can smell it, right? They totally sense it, and they want to be part of it. So 50% of every brand is the organization itself. That's the simple math on it. And if everybody in that company is customer centric from the CEO on down, suddenly you've got companies that are just exploding out of nowhere, and you go like, how did they do that? They did it by listening to their customer and giving not what you want to give the customer, but what the customer needs. And that's the beauty of dealing with data. Data and the patterns start to tell you what customers need. And I love that.
Correct me again if I'm wrong here, but are you suggesting that in providing what customers need, you're almost creating the sense of, and I'm thinking of the example that you mentioned earlier, where you provided a debugger as part of a wider solution pack.
Yeah.
You're almost creating a sense of reciprocity, which inclines customers to wanting to buy from you.
Yeah, of course, it's because if they solve this pain point for us, what else can they solve? It's success breeds success, right? It's about a typical thing. It's landing a beachhead. Get the first one, but make sure it's successful, make sure it's the right one. Don't go in and do the wrong solution because it won't work. And there's only one person they will blame, and it's you. It's not the person who picked you. We'll be done. We are very careful and programmatic how we work with our clients to get them to that solution that they need. So it's not just, we've got this crystal ball and this is what you need. We go and we seriously hunt, and we identify the pain point. The pain point's easy to identify. But working back from that and showing them what they can get is how we want.
The concepts you talked about earlier don't necessarily scale. And I'm just thinking that for most companies, they would perhaps revert to something like content as a means to create that initial trust and be able to scale that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing white papers.
How would you suggest you marry up addressing what customers need with this idea of content in order to make it not just scalable, but actually speak to...
That depends on the problem. That depends on the problem you're solving. So the problem we're solving is that we're going to be pioneers in this new agentic world. I'm not saying what we're doing, this is going to be in this agentic world. And in order to do that, we need to be able to describe what agents are. And it's not a simple answer. Okay. If it were, it would have been answered. So we have, as of time of this recording, an almost ready to publish white paper that defines AI agents. And we also have another document which also defines an AI agentic manifesto. Because going back to culture, agents are also should be part of that culture, because if they're not acting within the bounds of the company and the corporation, hell will reign. And so all of this has got to be done safely and securely. So just go back to addressing this. It's just irreversible momentum is where you've suddenly got that wind in your backs. It's the same thing with the product and addressing on how you scale it. Is like you get one solution in, so you've harvested those patterns. And those patterns are not intellectual property of the customers. We're just capturing patterns like, oh, company X is doing that, company Y is doing that, they're seeing the same thing. Company Z is doing, and that's the kind of patterns I'm talking about. It's not the data, it's literally the patterns of something. This is what we build a product around. And that's precisely what we're doing. So this is how we scale. We scale by building products that will then be able to go to mass market and be readily accepted, because we know this is functionality that clients want, because we've done the build with their existing clients that we're working with.
So I was going to ask you what you mean by true agents, but you're still about to publish the...
No, It's a complex. That's not a simple answer. We would need another hour to go through this because, I'm actually not joking. It's not an easy thing to answer because there's autonomy involved, right? So not only is there autonomy involved, it's you got to be thinking about what are they, like human rights. What are what agent rights? What rights do agents have, right? But you got to also think about the safety, the security, the responsible aspects of it with compliance. And then how do you handle learning and adaptability, and how do they collaborate and interact with each other? So it's a multi-dimensional thing. And this is us simplifying it down significantly from what we originally had. And so it's going to get defined here really quickly. And our plan is to be the ones defining it. And I'm not saying that from an arrogant perspective. Microsoft laid us a challenge down to actually do it because they couldn't define it. And so we accepted the challenge. And so now it's just turned into this whole other work story. But it's very clear to us that very few people are thinking along the lines that we have, because we've been interviewing other people in the industry. We've been interviewing ethicists. We've been interviewing humanists. This is a complex problem. And if you don't get it right in the beginning, to use that great British expression, you're buggered.
Just on that note, on the flip side, there is room, certainly at present, for people to use it for a negative experience, to create negative experiences. How would you recommend organizations not just build guardrails, but perhaps a bit of a moat around them to prevent such occurrences?
Okay, so there's different kinds of moats. Okay, now you're again talking my language. So if we're talking about are you talking about a competitive moat?
That too.
Okay, are you talking about a moat that, hey, we're safe from the barbarians are being kept at the gate kind of a moat?
That as well, but also just perhaps with recent events, a disgruntled employee who may be unhappy, but has access to internal systems, could very easily introduce a change that could disrupt things quite significantly.
AI is not going to solve for malignant and nefarious behaviors like that. And I do use the term malignant very carefully here. I didn't just introduce that because that to me it speaks to character. When you do things like that because somebody upset you, that's a character flaw. That's a serious character flaw in my opinion. Sure. You might not see it that way, but that's how I see it, right? It's trust. And so again, if you don't believe in the CEO's mission, you shouldn't come to go and work for the company. You shouldn't be looking for a job, right? There's a government for that. They'll hire you for a job. But if you really want to work in industry, you got to find the CEO that you love, that you adore, that you just worship and just love their message to whatever it is. And you adhere to that. Because when you do that, you're working with people who think like you, who won't look like you. That's the wrong thing, but who think like you at least. If you say they have, but they are the people that you have that synergy with. That's the word I was really looking for. That chemical synergy with, because all of a sudden now you can achieve with a pod of 4 people what 20 people did before. That was possible before AI. It's even more possible today. It's just the level of productivity is going up if you use AI correct. And so if you don't believe in the CEO, don't go and work there.
The mission and greater vision, the degree to which you're bought into that is significant. Just going back to what you talked about earlier about building a moat from a competitive sense, what would that look like?
So what a moat like that looks like is what secret do you know that your competition doesn't? And that will change over time. But in order to stay ahead of your competition, you have to be knowing something that they don't. And some are so fundamental that it will take them years to get there. But some are not. They can be faster. So You build moats by doing something that your customers absolutely need in a way that your competition doesn't understand, because they don't have the same market intelligence that you do. And this is why just reading Gartner reports, as valuable as those are, is not enough. You have to augment it with other market intelligence, right? And that goes back to, what did I say earlier? A conversation, because people will talk to you. And you just find the ones that want to talk to you, and they will. And you'll get so much information from that will drive your product direction. It will drive your competitive positioning, and it will build your reputation, not just within your customer base, but within a potential partner base, and also potential acquirers of your company as well, because they feel the buzz, they smell it, they taste it, back to all of that.
We talked at the start of the show about potentially transforming traditionally friction-heavy departments like finance and legal into customer experience enablers. Could you speak to that?
So, in terms of what, Vinay?
In terms of transforming them from being friction-heavy to being more customer experience enablers.
Oh, yeah. So this goes back to the drawing, right? Where you've got friction happens when you don't have a well thought out transition process, because it's the only time that really friction happens, right? It's when two things meet, right? So all of a sudden I'm transitioning from marketing to talking to a salesperson, or transitioning from talking to a customer care rep, or transitioning to tier 2 support. It's friction, right? There's always going to be friction. It's the whole time too long. Is it the person speaking at that, too quickly for me? Is it, whatever it is, there's friction. So you've got to map it out, which starts with talking to people. And I always encourage people to talk with the lowest level person in your company first and work up from there, because they're the people that are going to tell you what's really going on. And same thing with your clients. They're going to tell you what's going on. And so be ready for those conversations, and don't make them random, and don't make your questions ambiguous. We're not being so direct, but you want them to be ambiguous in the sense that get them to talk to you. So it's not just a yes, no. Do you have this? Yes. Well, that's the end of the conversation. No, you want to draw them out, but to be consistent with the questions that you're asking. And you're going to get data, and it doesn't take that much. 10 interviews, you're going to have a really good idea. By 20, you will have a darn good idea. And if you really want to go to certainty, you go out towards 100, but you do not need to go and do that. So between 10 and 20 people to talk to, you're going to have a great. We're building product right now with 5 build with customers, and it's going to be a beast of a product. And that's how we're doing it. A little secret sauce sharing with you.
Thank you for that. In the space of building total organizational revenue momentum, do you find that there are perhaps a couple of areas that doesn't get talked about very much? If so, what would they be?
Always starts with marketing budgets and where the marketing spend is and the goals and everything else. I really encourage people to, especially within whoever runs go-to-market. Sometimes it's the CEO, sometimes it's somebody like me who has the title of Chief Go-to-Market Officer. I own marketing and sales partnerships, support, and products. So it's just got it all. It was like the old line. It was the old line where I was volunteering from that. Everybody stepped back, and no, I didn't. I'm joking. But it really comes back to really driving awareness of transparency and everything else to really to really get the results that you're looking for. And I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not, but I have this fundamental concern with companies both large and small. I used to see very regularly, and now I'm really focused in elsewhere now. But just how dysfunctional so many are. And it's because people aren't aligned in their KPIs. So like sales and marketing, there's some alignment, as I alluded to earlier. Get completely aligned. Everybody has a revenue number. End of story, right? Now let's just, now we've got that dark horse out of the room. Now let's figure out, what do we need to do? What's the work back plan to hit that revenue number? Okay, it's $20 million. All right. We need to do this. What does that mean for the number of the number of qualified opportunities? I don't care about just a marketing qualified lead or an MQL, which is somebody breathing a mirror. Somebody's come to your website, I think. No, we want sales qualified leads, right? Because sales qualified leads means my guys in sales versus my gals in marketing, or vice versa, and guys and gals, right? I'm just, you know what I'm saying? Don't mean to be prescriptive in that way, but is everybody's working together now to their superpower, because now the sales team is getting highly qualified leads that they can now turn into opportunities, which is their superpower, and turn those opportunities into closed logo wins, new design wins into the company. That's their superpower. So in marketing, having a team that is completely aligned with the number of sales qualified leads that we need to generate this number, it takes all of the guesswork out of the equation. Because if you're not getting it, what do we need to do together to get to that? Because we know what it's not impossible. We're just not doing something quite right yet. So let's work together now, figure out how we tweak, and continuously monitoring. And that's just another key thing people don't do, is continuously monitoring. And it's not like this. Nobody should be writing a weekly report or monthly report or any of that stuff anymore. You should be having with your team a daily stand-up that is no more than 15 minutes long. You're starting right at the start of your day, so everybody knows who's on deck for what they're doing. It's not micromanagement. I just know that Vinny's working on this, and I know that Fred's working on that, and I know that Jane's working on the other, and I know that whomever is working on, and it's just like, we're all working together so that when we get together towards the end of the day, we'll just over email what's going on. We're all aligned, and it's that force multiplication. So what I'm driving towards is force multiplication, where our team, which is currently of 12 people and rapidly growing, to something that appears a lot bigger to the market, because we're just so in sync. And that sync starts with our CEO. And from the CEO, that the rest of us are just in awe of our CEO, which I am. He's one of my closest friends. I love him to death as a friend as well as a co-worker. And I believe in him. And that's the key, whether he's a friend or not. I believe when he approached me for this, I believed, and I believed in him, right? So it was about him, not the what. And we're still figuring out the what, right? Remember, we're still doing our build with. So when we do launch our product, it will be something people need.
Great points there. Philip, I think we've covered a fair bit of ground to wrap up. If you were listening to this episode, what would you say would be your top takeaway?
Is start talking to people about change. And don't be fearful of AI, but be very wary of it. Is that whatever AI you start using, make sure it's safe and it's responsible, because you will get yourself into a bit of a fix if you don't.
Certainly. And if listeners are curious who want to find out more or connect with you, where would you recommend they head to?
Come to me via LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn, and DM me however. So my LinkedIn profile is Phillip, PHILLIP-SWAN. And that's the way to do it. And if you're interested in knowing more about the AI Solution Group, our website is the AI Solution Group, singular.ai. And we'd be happy to have you sign up for any of our newsletters or anything else that we're publishing.
We'll include links to that in the show notes. Philip, thank you so much for doing this. It's been brilliant.